The quarter times table is another brilliant way of solving questions very quickly, very simply, very accurately if it involves halves, quarters or three quarters. Let's take an example. How easy is it to divide by 2? Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. A number like 480 where both the digits are even is very simple. 4 goes to 2, 8 goes to 4. We eventually end up with 240. And we can divide other numbers, perhaps this number, with one even number, a number 3. 3 is not good divided by 2. But it's 300 really, isn't it? And that gives you 150. And then you can look at the 80 and you can say, well, that's going to give me 40. So together I get 190. And the great thing about 190, 19 doubles to 38. So that looks good. And slightly harder again if you've got 2 odd numbers. This 5 represents 500, so that will give you 250. This 70 is tricky. 70 divided by 2, well, you might think that's 60 plus 10. 60 gives you 30, and the 10 divided by 2 is 5, so that's 35. Is that right? I was always suggest checking. So 35 times 2, well, that's 16. That gives you 10, so that's 70. That's hopefully correct. So let's add them up. 285, that's 57 divided by 2. Let's see how we can use it to answer questions. A half times a half. If we halve something and then half it again, we end up with a quarter. Very useful to know that. So if we say, what is a quarter of 84? Well, 1 times 84 equals 84. I wouldn't write that. But it's nice to start off with something we know is true. Divide by 2. This divides by 2 to be a half times 84, and 84 divides to be 42. A half times 84 is 42. And then we divide it by 2 again. And that tells us that a quarter times 84 is equal to 21. Which is true. Times that by 4. The 2 gives you 8 and the 1 gives you 4, 84. Right, that's useful to know. So if we divide something by 2, you get a half, but you also get 50% and 0.5. So we can use this for 50% and 0.5 questions. And if we divide again, we get a quarter, which is equal to 25% and 0.25. So this is good at solving all of these. Can we go any further? Well, let's look at 25% of 120 cars have flat tyres. How many cars have flat tyres? Well, divide by 2, 50% of 120 is 60. Divide by 2 again, 25% of 120 is 30. Very quick. Not doing any multiplication here, all we're doing is dividing by 2. What else do we have? Well, a half plus a quarter is 3 quarters. So if 3 quarters of 320, I don't know about that. 3 times 320 divided by 4, messy. But look at this. 1 times 320 is, as you know, 320 divided by 2, and a half times 320 is 160. And a half of that is a quarter of 320 is 80. Now, if I add these last 2 lines, I would add a half and a quarter, and I would get 3 quarters times 320. And on this side, I get 160 plus 80, 240. Without any real complication at all. We're lucky in this case because 32 divides and divides again quite easily. But then examiners are going to give you that sort of break occasionally. A half plus a quarter equals 3 quarters. And so now I can get 3 quarters. If I was to summarise, oh, here we go, another example, 75% of 256. 75%, okay, 50% of 256 is equal to 128. 25% of 256 is equal to 64. Let's add those two together. 50 and 25 is 75 of 256 is equal to 192. Not a particularly nice number, but it happens to be 75% of 256. So if I was to write out this, divide by 2 to get a half, obviously, but it's also 50%, or it's 0.5. And divided by 2 again, I get a quarter and 25% and 0.25. And then I add the two together, and I get 3/4 is equal to 75% and 0.75. Now, these are very common questions. You know, what is 3/4 of something? What is 0.25 of something? You can work it out really quickly. Let's hope you can, because here's your opportunity to show your skills. Quarter of 500, 25% of 240, and 75% of 120. Okay, well, a quarter, as you know, is now a half of a half. So a half of 500 is, well, we did that before, 250. And if you might take a half of that again, a half of, that's a quarter of 500 is a half of this. Well, 200 gives me 100 and 50 gives me 25, so that's 125. What is 25% of 240? Well, here, 50% of 240 is that divided by 2, which is 120, and divide that by 2 again, 25% of 240 is 60. Brilliant. I mean, if I multiply 6 by 4, I get 24, which is comforting. What is 75% of 120? Divide by 2, 50% of 120 is 60. Divide by 2 again, 25% of 120 is 30. Add them. 75% of 120 equals 90. That's got to be easier than whatever you do here. It's not going to be nice, is it? It's not going to be nice. So I hope that's been proven useful. And I think we've taken something that's tricky. I might think it's actually that last question is trickier than that. And we've made it easy. So if you've enjoyed that video, or even if you haven't, why not subscribe? Plenty of stuff